Certainly. Here's the text translated into English while following the specified guidelines. On Christmas Eve, the community management group suddenly buzzed with a message. Hi everyone, we're delivering wontons this year. Reply with received if you want some. Just as I was about to respond, I saw the sender's profile picture, and my heart sank. Mr. Zhang. Didn't he pass away last night? Christmas should be a time for family reunions, but I was alone in my rented room, having lost both my parents. Outside, fireworks lit up the sky while I stood by the window, mesmerized by their brilliance. The group chat was lively, messages flooding in. Yum. I want some. I was about to reply when I was shocked again by the sender's ID. Mr. Zhang, who had died from exhaustion, was this a prank? The property management had only dared to handle Mr. Zhang's body at night, and I had witnessed it firsthand because I was late coming back from work. Who was sending this message? Summoning my courage, I typed, "Is this Mr. Zhang?" I hoped it might be another staff member using his phone to cope with work pressure. But then, the next moment, I received a photo, Mr. Zhang smiling, with bowls of steaming wontons in front of him. The chat erupted with "smells great" and "I want to eat," while I felt like I had fallen into an ice cave. As I finished work, my car stopped at the community's side entrance. I was all too familiar with the property management decor since I passed by it every day. Before his death, I had seen Mr. Zhang tear down the Fu character from the wall, yet in the photo, it was nowhere to be found. Who was this person in the picture? The first replies came from the 4th and 5th floors, and since I lived on the 5th, it was my neighbor next door responding. I considered sending her a private message, but it was too late. Mr. Zhang's message had caught her attention. I'm coming up now. A chill ran down my spine. I turned off all the lights, ensuring I hadn't missed any, then crouched by the peephole to watch for movement outside. The neighbor from the 4th floor was a popular streamer, always the first to respond. Her temper was usually short, especially towards management, and today was no exception. She typed, "Hurry up. I'm starving after streaming all night. Old man, don't drop the bowls." To which Mr. Zhang calmly replied, "I'm steady." But she scoffed, "With a face like that, who knows what you'll put in?" My heart raced. The 4th floor was really pushing their luck. Mr. Zhang only responded with a smile, and I sensed something was off. He seemed to have reached the 4th floor. Suddenly, everything fell silent. No more replies from her. Someone asked, "Wasn't she so loud? What's up with that? Are the wontons really that good?" But silence lingered from the 4th floor. Moments later, Mr. Zhang sent another message. "The girl said it's delicious. I'm heading up to the 5th floor, smile." My heart dropped. The elevator chimed, and I froze, my heart pounding. I lived at the end of a corner hallway. If someone came up, we'd be face to face. Then, a shadow appeared in my line of sight. The peephole was mostly broken, but I could barely make out half a figure. I felt a surge of anxiety as the silhouette approached, the stark red longevity character glaring at me. It was a shroud. My last hope shattered ruthlessly. Such clothing was meant only for the dead. Though I couldn't see the face, I couldn't be sure if it was really Mr. Zhang. Terrified, I clamped my mouth shut, struggling to breathe. Was someone playing a cruel prank on Christmas Eve, deliberately scaring us with such attire? The management's younger staff had a penchant for mischief. On April Fool's Day, they pulled ghost tricks in the elevator until they were reported. At that moment, the neighbor next door was right beside me, but I was gripped by fear as the figure walked straight toward my door. I crouched down, my heart racing. After a while, I cautiously stood up and peered through the peephole. Just one glance nearly sent me into a panic. Half a black eyeball was rolling, as if he were peering back at me. I muffled a scream. Fortunately, after a moment, he stepped back and knocked on my neighbor's door instead. "Hello, your wontons are here." The door opened, and my neighbor seemed startled. In the next moment, I saw someone resembling Mr. Zhang slip inside, and the door closed. The walls were thin. I could faintly hear some screams coming from next door. I pressed against the door, the eerily quiet hallway echoing with a crunching sound. Would eating wontons make that kind of noise? Confusion filled my mind. About 3 minutes later, the odd sound stopped and the door reopened. From my angle, I only saw the person resembling Mr. Zhang carrying a food box with unnaturally pale arms. In a chilling tone, he said, "Enjoy your meal." This voice wasn't Mr. Zhang's, and I sighed with relief. It looked like it was just the young staff playing a prank. How could a dead man come back to life? The photo in the group must have been their trick. Maybe I was just remembering things wrong. Just as I relaxed, he turned to face my direction. I froze, holding my breath. He stood still as if he were locking eyes with me through the peephole. I didn't dare move, fearing he might see me. After a while, he finally turned and vanished from view, taking the food box with him. The neighbor's apartment fell eerily silent, and I felt uneasy, not daring to open my door just yet. The elevator hadn't chimed, so he clearly hadn't left. I quickly found my neighbor's WeChat in the group and sent a friend request. A moment later, it was accepted. I hesitated and crafted a message. Were the wontons good? The reply came slowly. Are you my neighbor? They're delicious. Want me to ask Mr. Zhang to bring you a bowl? I quickly declined. No thanks, I don't want to trouble anyone. Just curious. I continued to monitor the group for updates. Mr. Zhang mentioned he was on the 6th floor now. At that instant, my neighbor replied, "Oh, it's not a bother at all." My heart skipped a beat. The elevator hadn't chimed yet. Was Mr. Zhang taking the stairs? That didn't add up. He had just come up in the elevator. Now he wanted to walk up the stairs? Were the young staff really that reckless? At this moment, the noisy streamer from the 4th floor had gone silent and hadn't said a word since receiving her wontons. After Mr. Zhang's delivery, she fell quiet and the chat began buzzing again. A resident from the 9th floor sent a voice message, clearly singing karaoke in the background. "Old man, can you hurry it up? I'm starving here. Do you want to starve your precious residents? Watch out, or I'll file a complaint." The 13th floor quickly replied, "Don't say that. It's late, and there's no one else from the management. It's already great that someone is delivering." Indeed, on New Year's Eve, many people go home for the holidays, and not many really need wontons. Counting these replies, only the 4th, 5th, my floor, 9th, and 13th floors were active. The other residents seemed to be watching the group dynamics, defending Mr. Zhang. "Calm down, young man. Everyone's parents get old. How can you treat elders like that?" chimed in a user named Flower Blooms Prosperity. The 9th floor's anger flared even more, immediately exploding. "Are you saying I lack manners?" "That's not what I meant. I just hope you can be a little gentler, especially around the holidays," replied Flower Bloom's Prosperity. 9th floor, it's none of your business how I was raised. Get lost, old geezer. He continued to shout at Mr. Zhang, "Hey, old man. Where are you? Do you want me to slap you?" Flower Bloom's Prosperity was almost pleading now. "You're just a thug, a bully." With the group becoming so chaotic, I decided not to join in. The noisy streamer from the 4th floor had been quiet since receiving her wontons. Usually, she was all about the drama. Was something really wrong? I scrolled through the chat history and noticed that about half an hour ago, my neighbor on the 5th floor had also responded, "Everyone, stop arguing. The wontons will be here soon. It's a holiday, let's not ruin the mood. They're delicious, right, 4th floor?" She even attached a picture of a bowl of spicy wontons that looked incredibly appetizing. Immediately, people chimed in, "Those spicy wontons look amazing." "I'm so hungry." I opened the image for a closer look, feeling puzzled. Was that red oil a bit too thick? The 4th floor finally replied again, "Yeah, they're good." The 9th floor was still arguing with Flower Bloom's Prosperity, anger boiling over, at Mr. Zhang. "Are you up here yet? Is the elevator broken, or are you just slow? I'm not kidding when I say I'll deal with you." The 13th floor kept urging him to calm down, worried he might actually do something. "Just relax, it's a holiday. Peace brings wealth." At last, Mr. Zhang replied, I'm at the 9th floor. Coming up soon. 9th floor scoffed, old man, last warning, hurry up. Mr. Zhang simply replied, I'm here. After that, the chat went quiet again, and the 9th floor stopped shouting. Was the wonton really that good that he forgot to respond, or was he so scared by the young staff that he couldn't speak? No one could tell. Suddenly, a hush fell over the group, as peaceful as still water. My heart raced. Just as I was about to open the door to check on my neighbor, a friend request notification popped up. The note read, whatever you do, don't go outside. Don't go outside. Stay inside. I froze, my hand gripping the doorknob. The request came from someone on the 11th floor, a guy who liked fishing. I recognized him. We often ran into each other in the elevator and had become familiar acquaintances. I accepted the friend request, puzzled as to why he would suddenly want to add me, especially with such a scary and vague message. Do you think the guy delivering the wontons is a bit off? His first message made my heart sink. Had he sensed something? Like me, the 11th floor hadn't asked for wontons in the group. Anxiety washed over me, and I casually replied, what does your note mean about not going outside? It's dangerous for a girl to be out alone at this hour. Something feels off. The guy on the 9th floor is right below me. He was singing loudly, but now it's silent. I thought for a moment and asked, couldn't he just be tired from singing? No way. That guy sings until 3 or 4 in the morning without fail. I've knocked on his door multiple times out of anger, even reported him, but he never listens. I fell silent. The guy on the 9th floor was an underground musician, hosting rock concerts in the community. Our neighborhood was old, mostly filled with middle-aged and elderly residents who couldn't understand his behavior. Eventually, someone complained about the noise, and the raucous concerts were replaced with old folks dancing. Ever since, he had no choice but to hold his rock concerts at home. He played music in his own territory, and no matter how much others complained, nothing could be done. The 9th floor had a temper, so everyone else just had to endure it. I lived on the 5th floor, not far from him, but I had never heard much noise, probably because he was a little farther away. Occasionally, I still heard others grumbling about the 9th floor's racket. I checked the time, it was only 11 at night. His nocturnal habits were indeed odd. I replied to the 11th floor, maybe he actually ate well today and is just really tired. The 11th floor quickly shot back, that's not possible. You don't know his temperament. I've seen him threaten people several times, and I can't believe he's suddenly changed. He was just yelling in the group, do you think he's mellowed out? I was confused. Why would the 11th floor suspect Mr. Zhang? Shouldn't people be more suspicious of the strong, hot-headed guy on the 9th floor? It didn't make any sense. Why do you think Mr. Zhang is a problem? I asked. Believe me or not, my gut feelings are usually right. Something about Mr. Zhang feels off. Also, there's someone on your floor, what's he up to right now? I stood at my door and peeked through the peephole. My neighbor's door was closed, I couldn't see anything. I replied, I don't know. I'm not very close to him, and everything seems fine in the group. The 11th floor said, you're not far apart. Have you heard anything strange? I thought for a moment and decided to be honest. I did hear some odd cracking sounds, but it didn't last long. For your safety, just stay home. It's better not to go out, it could be dangerous. Under such a fearful night, having someone familiar comforting me eased my anxiety a bit. However, the long silent 9th floor suddenly sent a message, the wontons are delicious, and Mr. Zhang is great. I was just a bit too excited earlier. Then, the 9th floor attached a photo. In the image was still that bowl of spicy wontons, the color of the red oil still looking thick and unusual. I clicked on the picture, my hand trembling, my face suddenly overtaken with fear. I could now clearly see that next to the spicy wontons were several drops of bright red blood. I majored in clinical medicine in college, so I'm more sensitive to blood identification than the average person. While others might glance at the photo and think it's just red oil spilled, I immediately recognized the sinister drops of blood. Had something really happened with the young staff? Were the fourth floor, my neighbor on the fifth, and the ninth floor all in danger? I quickly targeted my friend requests to the 13th and 18th floors, writing in the note, urgent. Urgent! This concerns your lives. The 13th floor accepted the request almost immediately. What do you mean? I told her about the potential danger on the 4th, 5th, and 9th floors. You shouldn't open your door. The 13th floor sounded skeptical, thinking I was overreacting. Are you reading too many horror stories? What you're saying is far-fetched. The photo in the group doesn't look suspicious, just some red oil, right? You're really reaching here. Perhaps because she was also a girl, I had a good first impression of her, so I decided to share everything I knew. I replied, what if I told you I saw Mr. Zhang's body last night? She gasped in fright. What? Mr. Zhang is dead? Don't joke with me, that's not funny at all. Are you serious? Please don't scare me like this. She was clearly shaken. I replied, I really saw the management take Mr. Zhang's body away. My peephole is broken, so I only saw part of it, but I even saw someone impersonating him wearing a shroud. I thought it might have just been a prank by the young staff, but it seems it's more serious than that. Don't scare me. My door lock is broken. At that moment, Mr. Zhang sent another message in the group. I'm at the 13th floor now. I missed that message, switching to my chat with the 11th floor and ignoring what the 13th floor had said. I messaged the 11th floor. Did you see the picture that the 9th floor posted? The 11th floor replied, what about the picture? Did you find something out? I poured out my theory. Do you think they might have been killed? I've warned the 13th floor not to open the door. The 11th floor went silent for a few seconds before replying, this could be serious. But you still shouldn't go out, things feel off. The security guards in the community are all on leave, and it's a bit isolated here. Even if the police come, it'll take a while. Just stay put, your safety is the priority. I lowered my eyes, contemplating. He was right, no one knew what danger I might face once I stepped outside. This old community had poor security and was quite isolated. With the guards on leave and hardly anyone around, the person impersonating Mr. Zhang could have accomplices waiting outside. Yet, I couldn't ignore the possibility of a life lost. I crouched by the peephole for a moment, the corridor brightly lit, confirming there was no immediate danger. I messaged the 11th floor again, I can't just sit here. I need to check on my neighbor. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. The 11th floor hurriedly replied, no. This is very suspicious. Don't be reckless. I dismissed his warning, placing my hand on the doorknob, ready to bolt outside. Just then, I heard someone next door talking on the phone. Hey Mom, I'll be back in a few days after work. Don't worry, I'm doing fine here. I'm tired and want to sleep. The voice stopped, and I hesitated, pulling my hand from the doorknob. Everything was fine next door? The 11th floor kept messaging, urging me to stay calm, don't act impulsively. It's dangerous. I opened the chat to reply, I just heard the 5th floor talking on the phone. He seems fine. At the same time, the 11th floor sighed in relief, that's good. It means things aren't as bad as we thought. Just don't act rashly. My tense nerves eased a little. Just then, the 18th floor accepted my friend request. I didn't know this person, their profile was dark and quiet. They had never posted in the management group before, only replying received when the wonton delivery was mentioned. I initially wanted to send a message to warn a few people but thought about the 5th floor's call. Maybe it was just the young staff playing pranks to scare everyone. I gathered my thoughts and decided to tone it down a bit. The wonton deliverer isn't Mr. Zhang, it's probably the young staff playing tricks. Just be cautious. However, the 18th floor didn't respond. With my ominous note, it'd seem a bit ridiculous to add them only to tell them it might be a prank. I originally considered calling the police, but I thought better of it. What if they just lectured me instead? I returned to my room, lying on my bed, feeling bored. I clicked on the 18th floor's moments. To my surprise, this seemingly aloof person was actually quite handsome. He had posted a few selfies of him gaming, wearing headphones, and looking intensely focused, which made him look particularly charming. Suddenly, a WeChat notification bounced up. I exited the 18th floor's moments, and upon seeing the message, cold sweat broke out on my forehead. My heart started racing. It was a picture sent by the 13th floor with the caption, "Are you messing with me? I just chatted with Mr. Zhang for a while. He seems fine, nothing strange about him, except that his outfit is a bit scary. He said his son bought it, and he didn't want to throw it out because it looked festive." In the picture, Mr. Zhang was sitting on the sofa in a bright red shroud, with a food container in view, the wontons looking delicious. No way. Absolutely impossible. I shook my head. How could I have been mistaken? Mr. Zhang was definitely dead, taken away by the management. The 13th floor continued. Mr. Zhang's son must not be a good person, sending his dad a shroud. Mr. Zhang is something else for actually wearing it. Everything felt wrong. Even if I had been exhausted and dizzy from work last night, I couldn't have mistaken someone for being dead. I was sure Mr. Zhang had died. But now, the picture from the 13th floor suggested I was wrong. She must think I was losing it. I couldn't wait any longer. I grabbed the phone and dialed 110 to report the situation. I explained briefly but didn't mention seeing a resurrected corpse. I didn't want to be dismissed as crazy by the police. I simply said, I heard strange noises and suspect someone is impersonating the management to harm residents. The police assured me they would respond quickly, but given the community's isolation, they estimated it would take about 40 minutes to arrive. During that time, I chose to stay put and not make any rash moves. The developments were too bizarre. It seemed this wasn't just a prank by the young staff after all. Mr. Zhang was really delivering the wontons. Could it be that there was a possibility of resurrection in this world? I shook off the strange thoughts and scoffed at myself. As a materialist, how could I believe in such things? Yet, I still firmly believed someone else was behind this, but the facts were proving me wrong. It was safest to just wait for the police to handle it. Trusting the 11th floor, I shared everything with him, including screenshots of my chat with the 13th floor. The next second, a message from the 11th floor left me completely bewildered. He sent me a picture, a surveillance screenshot. Although I didn't know where it was taken, it clearly showed a flash of red. I enlarged the image and observed it closely. The figure was young, wearing a shroud and holding a food box. It seemed unfamiliar yet somehow familiar. To verify my thoughts, I opened a profile picture and saved it, repeatedly comparing the surveillance image with the saved photo. My phone slipped from my hand, my heart racing. I recognized him. The face was identical. Lin Jiao? What's wrong? Why aren't you responding? The person pretending to be Mr. Zhang in the screenshot turned out to be someone from the 18th floor. I carefully compared the faces. There was no mistake. Panic surged through me. So those people really had met with misfortune? I quickly opened the chat with the 13th floor and saw a retracted message beneath Mr. Zhang's photo. What had the 13th floor retracted? If this wasn't a supernatural incident and Mr. Zhang was just an imposter from the 18th floor, then it was possible that those before had genuinely been killed. But why would the 18th floor do this? Why would they murder on New Year's Eve? And why impersonate the already deceased Mr. Zhang? Questions flooded my mind. I told the 11th floor that the impersonator was from the 18th floor. Brother, I've called the police. Let's wait for them to arrive. The 11th floor replied in shock. It seems those people really are in danger. The 13th floor is likely in trouble too. I felt utterly drained, slumping back against the foot of my bed. Was this a deliberate murder or just random killings? Looking at the messages I sent to the 18th floor gave me chills. What if the killer was targeting me as well? The 4th floor, my neighbor on the 5th, the 9th floor, and the 13th had all gone silent in the group. I distinctly heard the 5th floor on the phone not long ago. I opened the 5th floor's WeChat interface. We had added each other as friends, but our conversations were just about whether the hallway power switch had tripped. I hesitated, wondering if I should message the 5th floor. I wasn't close to them, but that voice on the phone was definitely theirs. No one could impersonate them. But if the 5th floor was really in danger, their phone would surely be in the hands of the 18th floor. If they were already targeting me, it would be a disastrous mistake. I backed out of the interface, burying my face in my arm, taking a deep breath. Why was I facing such a situation, especially on New Year's Eve? Not only was I homeless, but I also stumbled upon a potential serial killer. Then, in the management group, Mr. Zhang sent another message. Okay, I have one last bowl of wontons for the 18th floor. After delivering this, I'm off work. Flower Bloom's Prosperity replied, "Thanks for your hard work, Mr. Zhang. After this, you can go home and reunite with your family." Mr. Zhang replied, "Haha, yes, I miss home." I couldn't help but scoff internally. Go ahead and pretend. The people in the group had no idea I was in peril, facing life-threatening danger on New Year's Eve. All I could do was wait for the police to arrive. Just then, the 11th floor messaged me, "Lin Jiao, we're not far apart. How about I come down and keep you company? It's too dangerous for you alone." My first instinct was to refuse. But on this terrifying night, I truly needed a warm presence. Plus, I knew the 11th floor. He was a good man. "Okay, come down." After sending that message, I tossed and turned on my bed, still unable to shake off the concerns about the 5th floor's call. Finally, I got up, walked to the door, and peered through the peephole. There was no one outside. It seemed there was no danger. With a determined breath, I opened my door, stepping lightly toward the 5th floor. I gently knocked on the door, but there was no response. Slowly, I leaned in closer to the peephole to peek inside. My pupils dilated, and I stumbled back, covering my mouth to stifle a scream. The peephole on the 5th floor was two-way, allowing me to see inside. Right by the door, the floor was stained with blood. The person inside had their limbs severed, sprawled grotesquely on the floor. I clamped my mouth shut, suppressing the urge to vomit as my breath quickened. I hastily pulled out my phone to call the police again, but at that moment, a dark profile picture suddenly lit up. "Get back inside your room. Now. Immediately." My eyes widened in shock, and without thinking, I rushed back into my room, closed the door, and locked it tightly. I collapsed against the back of the door, gasping for breath, trying to calm my racing heart. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I tried to steady my phone. The 11th floor messaged, "Lin Jiao, the elevator seems to be broken. Wait for me, I'll come down." I wanted to warn the 11th floor not to come down, that it was dangerous. But just then, I saw a message from the 18th floor, freezing my fingers in place. "Don't open the door for anyone, no matter who it is. And don't reply to any messages. Don't respond to anyone's messages." I was utterly confused. What did the 18th floor mean? Wasn't he the killer? Why was he warning me not to respond to others or to open the door? What was going on? I sank back into the corner by the door, silencing my phone, burying my head in my arms, hiding in the dark. The 11th floor said the elevator was broken, and as I was on the 5th floor, it would take a few minutes for him to arrive. But what did the 18th floor mean? My mind was a mess. I didn't dare reply to anyone. Then, a knock, rap, cut through the silence of the night, almost sending my heart into a frenzy. Who was it? I slowly pulled myself up from the floor, cautiously moving toward the peephole, and once again, I saw that half of a black, rolling eyeball. I stumbled back, my pupils constricting, but I couldn't muster a scream. "Is anyone there?" "This is the police." I received a report. The pounding of my heart calmed as I heard those 4 words, "This is the police." My face lit up, and I was about to twist the doorknob when a message from the 18th floor flashed on my phone. "Don't open the door. Do not open the door." I hesitated, the joy on my face disappearing instantly. What did that mean? What was happening? The dark profile picture flashed again with another message. The person outside is a murderer, not a policeman. You must not open the door. Panic washed over me as I pressed my forehead against the peephole. A man in a police uniform, wearing a mask, stood there. He looked exactly like a policeman. Who are you? I murmured in despair. Just then, I received another image from the 18th floor. I opened it to find another surveillance screenshot, but this one clearly indicated it was from the 13th floor. In the image, the red figure had its back turned to the camera, but I could see a kitchen knife in its hand as it opened the door of the now vanished 13th floor resident. But hadn't the 11th floor said that the cameras on the other floors were down? How did the 18th floor have this footage? Next, the 18th floor sent several video clips, one from the 4th, 5th, 9th, and 13th floors. In the video from the 4th floor, the streamer opened her door, cursing, but when she saw the visitor, she was instantly terrified and then killed, her blood soaking the entrance. The 9th floor resident also started off aggressively but fell silent upon seeing the figure in the shroud draw a knife. She, too, was killed. As for the 13th floor, the resident's door was jammed. She screamed as she tried to block it, trembling as she typed something. In the next moment, the figure in the shroud brought out the knife and killed her. These clips were only a few seconds long, yet the horrifying scenes sent chills down my spine. The video from the 5th floor just happened to capture the full face of that person when they went next door. When I saw the clear face, I froze in shock. Under the bright light, I recognized the face of the 11th floor. I didn't know who to believe anymore. Why should I trust you? The 11th floor also sent me a surveillance screenshot, and the person in it looked just like you. The 18th floor replied, "Screenshot? Don't you know there's something called AI face swapping in this world? The person you mentioned on the 11th floor added me too. He stole my photos, and AI face swapping is quite normal. But how do you have these video clips? The 11th floor told me the cameras on other floors were broken. He lied to you." The 18th floor continued, "I studied computer science. Hacking the cameras is easy. Guess why he sent you screenshots instead of videos? In such a short time, he could only do photo AI face swapping." I felt completely drained as the person outside continued knocking. "Is anyone there? Did you call the police?" My heart raced. Could it be that the 18th floor knew I went next door by watching the surveillance? Was he warning me to return to my room? The person knocking outside isn't a police officer, it's the 11th floor. "Don't respond, just wait for the police to arrive," the 18th floor's voice warned again. "If it weren't for you adding me as a friend, I wouldn't have been alerted." "Thank you for that." The voice outside murmured, "Strange, no one's answering? Could it be a false alarm?" I huddled at the bottom of my door, too terrified to respond. The person outside seemed to be waiting for my reply. I felt utterly hopeless, constantly thinking, who could possibly save me? Everything was part of the 11th floor's scheme. He impersonated Mr. Zhang under the guise of delivering wontons to identify his targets for this serial killing. He'd taken the victims' phones and messaged in the group to dispel suspicion, while simultaneously comforting me, warning me to stay inside. Suddenly, it hit me, the peephole in my door wasn't two-way, it was broken. In this old building, who knew how long it had been since it was replaced? From the very beginning, the 11th floor must have known I had witnessed his crimes. That's why he messaged me to probe my knowledge. When he realized I hadn't seen clearly, he dropped his murderous intent against me. Afterward, I became the biggest variable in his serial killing plot. He kept me stable, preventing me from going outside because he feared I'd discover the truth about the dead neighbor. He was even more terrified that I would call the police. But when I did report it, he couldn't wait any longer. Disregarding the 18th floor, he directly came down to try and kill me. It was terrifying. If it weren't for the 18th floor's warning, I would have been a cold corpse by now. "Strange, no one's home?" His voice grew fainter, and the atmosphere outside calmed. Just then, the 11th floor sent me a message. "Lin Zhao, I'm here. Someone just left." Was that the police? I didn't respond. My hands trembled so much that I couldn't type. Burying my face in my arms, time passed slowly, filled with endless fear. Then, a deep voice came from outside. "Young lady, did you call the police?" Hope surged in me. My face brightened. Finally, the police had arrived. I pushed myself up from my numbed legs, gasping as I looked through the peephole. But it was still that half-black eyeball. Ah! The pain of hope being extinguished gripped me again. The 11th floor cut off the audio, still wearing the police uniform, but smiling eerily. "Lin Zhao, why don't you open the door?" Are you afraid of something?" I screamed, trembling. "Go away." He pulled out a kitchen knife and began hacking wildly at the door, laughing as he did. "Don't be afraid. This knife has only killed fish before. It's only today that it has tasted human blood. Don't worry, I'll leave you with a whole body, Lin Zhao." I covered my ears, crying out, "Go away. Don't come near me. I've already called the police." The 11th floor kept hacking at the door. "Do you think this old door will break faster, or the police will arrive first?" I broke down, crying as I asked, "Why are you trying to kill me? I've never done anything wrong. Why can't you just let me go?" He laughed coldly while chopping at the door. "Let you go? Who's going to let my father go?" I pressed my hands to my ears, tears blurring my vision. "Father? Who is your father?" The 11th floor seemed to sense my confusion. "My father is Mr. Zhang." "You people are so cold." "The 4th floor isn't innocent. They constantly insulted my father." "The 6th floor, and you too, you're all terrible people." I shouted in despair. What did I ever do to Mr. Zhang? Why do you want to kill me? The 11th floor sneered, continuing to chop at the door. "My father was beaten to death by the management. You saw it, yet you turned a blind eye and left. So tell me, should I not kill you?" I widened my eyes, finding his reasoning absurd. "Just because I didn't avenge your father, you want to kill me? What does that have to do with me? Just because I saw it, I deserve to die?" He chuckled coldly. "You're not escaping today." With a click, the door lock broke. No. I don't want to die." I felt paralyzed, scrambling backward. The 11th floor pushed the door open, gripping the knife as he approached me, a sinister smile on his lips, locking his gaze on me. "All right, it's time for you to go." I stared wide-eyed, shaking my head and desperately crawling backward, tears blurring my vision. "No, you can't." In that instant, the 11th floor burst into laughter, raising the knife directly toward my head.